and get it down to something manageable. And geez, that's only a single 11 kilowatt diesel generator to power, say, 17 or 18 houses. Makes sense. And we could put that one single generator there, and all of us get together and buy diesel, and we could all have power. And diesel engines, by the way, can run on everything from clarified butter to, fat from McDonald's.
Well, guys, we're at the top of the hour. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. MilitiaRadio.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Militia Roundtable. That is MilitiaRadio.com. Give out the call-in number. That is 505-715-6581. One more time, the call-in number is 505-715-6581. We're continuing with our guest, Clif, from HalfPastHuman.com. Take it away.
Thank you, Steve. And for those people that think they can handle it, I encourage you to get this report, go to his website, support him, thank him for taking the time in his busy schedule to help inform us of what's to come. We have a lot of stuff I'm going to try to cover. I was talking to the other guys when we were on break, and a few things come up, but I'm going to stay on this, getting prepared just a little further. Clif mentioned he has some really good books on how to identify wild edibles. So take it away, Clif.
Yeah, if you can go to actually any of the sites like Amazon, or you're buying wherever you might want to buy books, Barnes & Noble and this kind of thing, and just look at the general subject of gleaning. You'll find a couple of books that come on out. Let's see, I've got one right here. The author's name is Pittman. It's hard to come by, but there's others. But basically the titles will all be how to find edible plants on your property, or 50 edible plants that grow within a mile of you, or how to have a sustainable diet on free and gleaned plants. And it's all under the subject of gleaning. A lot of the information is relatively old in the sense that they're looking at plants that used to be in our diet that were phased out when we got head lettuce, that kind of thing, right? And they reference bring up the same kind of plants that people in Greece and Crete lived on, and still do to this day. They're the healthiest population in the EU, even though they are frequently among the poorest. And a lot of it has to do with still in this perpetual affiliation with these free sources of nutrients and all kinds of bionutraceuticals, so to speak. The bioflavonoids that you find in some of these wild herbs cannot be duplicated in your current diet. You're not going to get them in broccoli or lettuce or this kind of thing. They just don't exist. So, watercress, that kind of thing, it just brings in all kinds of nutrition that you just don't get.
That's excellent. Thank you.
And also, just as a quick aside, if you want to see pictures of my grow dome, I've got a link on my Half Past Human site, and you can go and see some of the pictures. I haven't updated them with the ripe tomatoes and stuff, but I'll get around to that in the next week or so.
All right, we have a caller. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, Clif. Hey, I'm really interested in what you're doing. I appreciate what you do for people. On this your plant die-off and stuff, I think you hit it too. All of our tomatoes and potatoes and gardens are dying around here from Maine all the way to Kentucky. And here it's a blight spread from Walmart. The FDA posted it back on the 13th. So it's going to kill all the gardens, they claim. Which
hello?
Yeah, hello.
Hang on, caller. From the 603 area code, hang on there. And the caller that's talking now, if you could speak up a little bit more, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Okay. On this plant die-off you discussed about all the plants that are dying. Okay, the FDA put out a report on the 13th of July that Walmart spread it around potato, tomato blight, and everybody's garden here is dead. I've got 100 tomato plants, and I ain't got 12 tomatoes off of them. Potatoes are dead. The other stuff's dying too. And also, I'd like to. What about the water, Clif? Is it going to be affected?
Yeah, that's an issue. It's affected now. You have to assume that water supplies, if you're hauling from a well and you've got a known aquifer, even so I would test it. But with the chemtrails and all the aluminum and the barium and stuff, it's gotten in and polluted the entire, what I call the food body of our developed planet. And I agree with you. It's been a weird year for crops around here. For instance, we've had a great year for vine crops up here in the Northwest, and yet some of the berries literally cooked on the vine here because we had set all kinds of heat records. So not only is it the blights in your area and the strange heat and cold periods we're having up here, which are cooking the raspberries and the marionberries on the vines, but we're also getting like the rust, the wheat rust is spreading all around. So this is why I think everybody's got to be real smart and have as many options as possible. So if you're planting a garden here in the Kentucky, Tennessee area that, cantaloupes are rotting on the ground, well, now is the time to start considering different ways of planting, to go and look at the biointensive and see about the raised beds and all these other different approaches in dealing with some of it. Won't deal with the blight, but there are different things you can do, like heirloom products and different kinds of things, because I've heard, for instance, that tomatillas, they are used in Mexico, are not being subjected to the blights. That'd give you a tomato-like substitute. Sort of makes sense. I feel bad for you guys. We've had all different kinds of crops that failed on me, but it's been a good tomato year and good cucumbers. But beyond that, it's like, well, we're not doing so good in the squash and this kind of thing.
Well, back here, only things are growing is squash and hot peppers. Everything else is dying, except the GM corn. We're heirloom, too, and it's not looking good. Well, thank you for your report, Clif. Bye-bye.
All right, we have one more caller lined up. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, Mr. Hine.
Hello, sir.
I was just wondering if the Webbots had anything to say about CONUS military installations.
The Korean, you say?
No, I'm sorry, Continental United States, sir.
Oh, yeah, Continental, yeah. Well, what do you want to know? We get into that, but the area is somewhat hot emotionally, so we don't have a lot of nuances. What particular aspect are you interested in?
Just curious what you see happening with military installations in, say, the western part of the country.
I'll give you an overview then. There's a couple of things that are going to affect it. One of them is going to be the huge economic crunch that we're going to go into. Our data suggests that from November 4th or 5th of this year through to November 2nd of 2010, over that pretty much whole year, the U.S. dollar will gradually die a death, a deserved death. This dollar death is going to affect military installations in a couple of ways. We got 1,000 bases around the planet, and our data suggests that some of those bases are just going to be abandoned, and nobody's going to try and haul those whole troops home, and they're just going to be left to fend for themselves. A lot of this is going to come about not because we would prefer not to bring them back or anything, but rather because we've got a situation set up where much of the military now depends on civilian subcontractors, and that will affect the bases. Yeah, I say that will affect the bases out here as well. The civilian subcontractors, once the economy collapses, we're going to have a huge unemployment wave like nobody's ever seen on this planet before. And it's going to cause a lot of these people to not show up for work because they're just not getting paid anything. Basically what happens is hyperinflation. So if you're getting $1,000 a month or $1,000 a week or whatever it is, in your paycheck, it'll be enough to buy, 2 gallons of gas and a loaf of bread, in the one day, and then the next day it might be able to buy 1 gallon of gas and half a loaf of bread, and it's going to be that kind of a severe hyperinflation. This is going to cause all kinds of unemployment that will affect the subcontractors that will in turn cause severe problems on the military bases because a lot of their support systems are no longer handled by themselves. And at the same time, the military itself will not be able to pay its own people nor supply necessary resources. Part of the problem for this stems back a number of years, but 60 actually, or over 60. But basically what has been happening, especially since the year 2002, is that the military is being systematically bled by the black ops side of things. And that's why you guys don't have the resources that theoretically Congress has allocated to you. And it's going to get quite severe this fall, but nothing compared to what it will be like next summer. But in our data, for instance, in our data, for instance, we show that people are still in the military next summer, and people may have been not paid for 5 and 6 months, but they're there because they're able to grow food on the military bases, and they've got a place to sleep, and they've got some form of heat, that kind of a deal.
3 hots and a cot. Yep. Right. The 3 hots and a cot economy.
Exactly. Just like in the previous depression, we had, in that period, we had people signing up just to get food and a place to sleep. And this time it's going to be different because the military will not be able to pay people, and it's going to lose a lot of its own support. as we get into this, what we're calling revolutionary phase, as everybody gets really upset with the powers that be and having been lied to for all these years, especially since they've got some really cool stuff hidden away in these caverns of theirs. And we desperately need it. And I think it's that desperation in the population that will drive us into an active phase of what we might as well call revolution sometime next summer.
Yeah, well, just my own opinion is revolution only benefits two people with everything to lose and people with nothing to lose.
Unfortunately, most of us are going to fall into the latter category. As the dollar dies, it's going to cause 2 billion people on this planet to die. Many of these people do not live in the United States. Many of these people live in places where they're trying to live on $1 or $2 a day, like Dominican Republic. A lot of them are going to be disenfranchised to the point that they die. But unfortunately, a big chunk of those people do live in the United States and are going to be plunged into a sudden level of poverty that we just cannot comprehend. You know, what's it going to be like to pay $800 for a barrel of oil because no one wants $1?
Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much for answering my question. I don't want to waste any more of your time, sir.
Thank you much.
Have a good evening, Mr. High.
You guys stay safe.
Thank you for the call. We're going to jump back in a couple other questions. One thing that keeps coming up, some of the intel guys that we talk to are saying there's a bunch of foreign troops staged, and when this collapse happens, it's all been planned, and these foreign troops are going to take control of America. Does your data suggest anything on that?
No. We don't have any data that would support that. We have data showing those rumors, and we have data showing what we call the fear language around those rumors, and it is my personal opinion that meme, that thought virus, is being used by the powers that be to try and manipulate people, to try and keep them in this state of fear and panic. And I also need to point something out. Historically, everybody has to understand that empires, which is what we live in, fail because they're not able to garrison their home population as the provinces break away. And China is a good case in point. When China took over Tibet, it didn't go on in there and kick out the Tibetan military in the butt and then say, okay, we're in charge. They did that, but then they started moving in their own population because China knows in order to control an area, you've got to have at least 20% of the population on your side. So if you just took the math, and I love math, and you said, okay, leaving out all the illegal population in the United States and rounding the numbers off to 300 million, then we've got to be looking at a military force in the 20s and 30s of millions just to reach 10% of our population. Anything less than 10% is doomed to defeat. So if you brought 30 million Chinese troops to the United States, they would be defeated just by our civilian population, picking them off in the course of months. If you brought 60 million, they might be able to hang on for a year. So in order to garrison us, you got to have 60 million foreign troops. I don't see any evidence that there's 60 million foreign troops out there. Anything less than that is doomed to defeat. And the powers that be know this.
So it's all propaganda. That's good to know.
We have nothing in our data at all that says that there's a reality behind it. And so I agree, it's propaganda. It's being used to manipulate large percentage of the population and drift or cause them to move into areas where they will follow particular leaders.